Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about a subject that we're all connected with, and that is death. But we'll make it fun, kind of. There's been some things coming up. Various people have been very confused lately, I should say. There's been a few no names or anything like that, but there's actually been some suicides, not people that are directly related, that I know directly, but unrelated, and people are very confused by it. And other reactions, the people with ill health and all these different things. And they been kind of asking questions and kind of referring to how unfortunate it is, and sometimes the world we live in, and of course this is something that the Buddha had figured out long ago, that we do suffer. But he also said that there's a way out of this suffering, and that's through the practice of the Eightfold Path, which really means that there is a certain amount of wisdom and understanding that we can accomplish and to get. There's some things that we can understand that can ease the suffering for us. I have a belief that we are served these lessons. We get these lessons again and again and again, and we will continue to get these lessons until we learn them. So it really helps to understand and know that they are lessons, that they are lessons that are being I say served to us because it seems very formal, and there's different ways to look at it. Let's just say that we all have 50,000 lessons that we are supposed to learn in this particular lifetime. And there's probably many, many more than that. And for some people, maybe there's less than that. It all depends on one key issue here, and this is also a big topic in the Eightfold Path, and that's karma. And so when I talk about these lessons, I'm also talking about karma, that when we extinguish our negative karma, or karma altogether, we stop accumulating this karma, that's when we have extinguished this fire. In other words, nirvana. We have reached nirvana. In other words, we become enlightened. And there is a series of awakenings, that happen up until the time that we are enlightened. But and we could also call those just different moments of enlightenment, or I like to call them awakenings, and kind of reserve that word enlightenment for the biggie, and that usually happens very close to the time that we die. And so there's really two primary beliefs that people have, and beliefs are wonderful to have, but they can also get us in trouble. And the reason beliefs can get us in trouble is because if we believe something and something else, and we hear something else, and something else comes up into our frame of reference, for example, and it confuses us, or it goes against the grain of what we already believe, we can disregard it and kind of say, no, that's not going to work. With my belief, it's not going to work. And so that can be kind of dangerous for us, in that we don't hear certain things, or we don't get certain teachings or certain lessons. And so we, the only thing, I never really want somebody to believe a certain thing that I say or anybody else says, but I do ask for people to be open. I really think that's important because life is a journey, it's a progression, it's always changing, everything is impermanent. And we should really be open to the different circumstances, different opportunities, different things that are happening out there, and not be closed-minded to these things. So there's a belief that are born into this world, and then we live this life, and then at the end of this life, we're done, and that's it. And you know, I have friends, I know people, I talk to a lot of people in my lifetime, and I know in conversations this has come up that a lot of people have this belief. And I've also talked to people about what happens after life, and there's a number of people that have never even thought about it before, which is kind of surprising. They've never thought about what happens after they die. They don't have a particular belief, and it's just like, oh, whatever, you know. But the other belief is the belief that that there is something after this, and it's more of a, I guess we could say, kind of a spiritual belief that from this, we live this life, and then something dies, which is the body. We could say it actually kind of changes, but that there's something that goes on. And that's a belief that a lot of people have. There's no way anybody can prove any of this. So it's all fair, you know, it's all fair game. But if we believe in a life after this one, we also believe in a life before this one. Like, this one isn't that special necessarily. I mean, it is special. Life is very special in itself, but it's not like we are born, we are created, you know, at the beginning of this life, and then we live this life, and then we live, you know, and then we live on and on and on. It's like we were, you know, there was a part of us that was created before this lifetime. And so that's one core belief, and then the other core belief is that in what is nihilism, we're born and then we die, and nothing before or after. And the idea with lessons, you know, understanding these lessons, is that the benefit of knowing this works for both of these belief systems, because understanding that if everything that happens to us is a lesson in some way, all it can do is provide a certain amount of happiness for us. You know, this wisdom, this understanding of why the world is what it is. And the reason I brought up the belief in afterlife or before this life, you know, and that kind of thing, is because it really does help in the area of the belief in karma. And karma it's just a word that means action, but it's kind of there's a twist to it. It's kind of a magical word in a way, that because these actions aren't performed and then they stop. These actions and the result of the actions continue on and on and on. And so that's where these, what I call these lessons, come in. And again, let's say that there's a lesson happening at nearly every moment. And I think we've all had the experience where we've been, we could say, dealt a lesson, and we didn't get it the first time, and we actually know when it was dealt again. And maybe we didn't get it at that time either, so we had to go through the thing again. And this could be a lesson in every area of life. Relationships, financial, you know, vocational, really any area. An example of a lesson that maybe somebody got is a particular type of person that they were drawn to, that they realized wasn't good for them. And then that relationship broke up, and then they were drawn to that type of person again, but they knew better, because they almost got the lesson. And then after that relationship fell apart, finally they got the lesson. You know, this is just an example. I'm not saying that this has happened to anybody here, but it's an example. Or the lessons in the financial world, that we should have watched our funds closer, and we suffered because of it. And we got lazy and we did it again. And we kind of go, that's when we go, because this means I've been dealt this lesson before and I didn't listen, I didn't listen to it. And we can actually use meditation for this teaching, because to understand these lessons is the key. I mean, and all it is just awareness of the many, many lessons that are dealt to us. And they could be dealt to us in every moment. Today, I'm sure all of us experience many, many lessons. We just have to kind of tune into these things, be aware of them, understand them. So what was served today that if we were aware and saw it as a lesson, how could we have benefited by that? What could we have learned by it? What could we have understood? And that's the invitation that I'd like to put out. And we will kind of do a meditation along those lines, and and see if there's any questions afterwards. So please make yourself comfortable. Keeping the back fairly straight and chin lifted a little bit, whether you're sitting in a chair or sitting on a cushion. Just find some comfort. Just take a moment and listen to the body. This can be the first lesson of the evening right here, starting at this present moment. What is the body trying to tell you? Is it comfortable? Is there any areas of the body that are causing any pain or discomfort? And why would that be? What lesson is in that? Does the body feel very relaxed and pleasant? Maybe you did some yoga or stretching before the meditation tonight, which would cause some relaxation and some more pleasurable feelings in the body rather than pain and discomfort. What kind of teaching is that? When we think of all the possible lessons that are served to us, delivered to us, it's almost a shame that we don't always look at these things as lessons, that they are actually missed because we're not aware of them. And these could be very, very small, minor things. A simple word that somebody said to us, and then a thought that came up as a response to that word or that sentence. Did we stop today and just take a nice deep breath and let ourselves relax and be thankful for the day? Did we do any of that this afternoon or this evening or this morning, to be grateful for just the day, just to be alive at this moment? What kind of lesson is in that? Oftentimes we don't look at these things as lessons. But if we believe in karma, if we believe in rebirth, and if we believe in the Buddhist doctrine that we are reborn because there is a reason for this rebirth, there's a reason for everything. And the reason for this rebirth is that there are certain lessons that we didn't pick up on. They weren't sticky. They didn't stay with us. And so we are reborn again to learn these lessons. And from the karmic standpoint, this answers a lot of questions as in regards to why do some people die at an early age. Because there was a lesson or a couple of lessons perhaps that they had to get, and they got them, and then they were done. My brother had a child, a boy, that died when he was 10 days old. And people ask why. Why would that, how can that be? You know, healthy little baby. And there was, from the Buddhist doctrine, there was some lesson that he didn't get in a previous life, and it only took him a short while to get that lesson, to receive it and retain it and to learn it, and then he was done. And my father died in last December at the age of 95. Was that his last life? Will he have a rebirth? No, nobody knows. Nobody can prove anything in that area. But there were some lessons likely some lessons that he was learning throughout his lifetime that took him to that age. Maybe there's some lessons on aging itself that he had to learn. The process of aging. Because he didn't really start aging until he was about maybe 85 years old. He didn't show his age until very, very late. There's many, many lessons in that. And we all have very unique lessons. I know people that have lived absolutely wonderful lives. And then something terrible happens very late in life. Something unexpected because they were just taken by surprise by something that was kind of devastating. Huge lessons. Different ways to receive these lessons, different ways for these lessons to be delivered. But all important, all necessary. And the wonderful thing about the lessons is that once they're learned, then they can be let go of. Not necessarily the meaning and the wisdom behind it, but any kind of memories that might linger and get in the way of our life, what's left of it. And that's why from the subconscious, from the psychological standpoint, the subconscious and the conscious mind, it's very important to understand what is lingering in the subconscious because of these lessons that are contained and the opportunities that these might not have to be relived if they're brought up, if they are allowed to surface into the memory and the recall. It's one of the reasons it can be very agonizing to have some past trauma that is hard for us to understand, hard for us to remember the details. Because we know it's there, possibly, but we also feel that there could be a lesson there, or could discover that there is a very valuable lesson within that content. So what kind of lessons are happening now in your life? Whether it's good or bad, desirable or undesirable, they're very important. They're necessary. And in this way, when something painful or undesirable or difficult happens, we can actually be thankful for it if we recognize it as a lesson. Because then we'll get it. We'll see these, what I call sticky lessons, the ones that stay with us. We'll understand them, and we won't have to repeat them again. Something that's very, very necessary for us to live the life that we are meant to live. And even pleasurable things can have lessons behind them, especially if we are somehow trying to recreate that pleasure, wanting to kind of be dependent on it and finding ourselves reaching for it, desiring these pleasurable moments that are created by whatever it might be. There's nothing wrong with pleasure, but when it's unnatural and when it's something that we try to create because it's stimulating, we want to be very careful. So what kind of lessons are happening in your life? What can be learned? And so all I'm asking is that we be open and aware, extremely aware, that each one of these moments, each one of these experiences, each one of these events is a lesson, something for us to look at as a valuable opportunity. And this way we'll never take the good or the bad for granted. And we won't miss a beat. So we still use the breath, focusing on our meditation object, whether it's the breath or whatever it might be. Bring ourselves into the present moment. Understand that the past and the future do have a value. And anytime that we notice the mind going into the past or the future, see what kind of lesson it contains, and then bring your attention back into the present moment. In other words, back to the breath. attention on the breath. Take a little deeper than normal inhalation, bringing energy into the body. Take a few nice deep inhalations. Wake the body up a little bit. Bring a little alertness to the mind. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your meditation. The theme, the invitation was to look at the lessons that we are delivered and served, in life. A big part of that is just understanding and realizing and being aware of that the lessons are there. And so there's a formula. It's finding these things called lessons and noticing them and investigating, really taking a good look at them and noticing maybe what part of our life that they affect. And when we recognize them as lessons, then we can accept that. And through that acceptance, or once everything is accepted, then there is the ability to let it go. And the letting go can happen very naturally. But the acceptance that it is a lesson is crucial, to understand that. Otherwise, it's difficult to let things go. And the primary aim of our meditation practice is in that area of letting go. I've said it many times, but meditation is not a gathering of anything, not an intentional gathering of anything, but it is a reduction, it's a reducing, it's keeping things at bay. And so it's not a collection. We're not collecting. We're letting things set aside. And it's always like that. Anyway, that's the heart of the Eastern practice. Anyway, but before we can really let go, we have to understand what we're working with, and the biggest part of that is the acceptance. If something happens in our life and it is a lesson and we're fighting it, we never see it as a lesson. We just see it as a circumstance, as something that probably shouldn't have happened. And we don't get the meaning behind it. We don't get the understanding behind it. It'll happen again. Because it's as if we have to get it. Or something very similar will happen again. But once we get it, then it's done for. And hopefully, when we think in terms of that in our meditation, as I mentioned, the mind is going to wander. It's going to go into the past and go into the future. I'm sure everybody's mind did that. If it didn't, you were probably in jhana. And you're probably, even if you were in jhana, it was probably doing that before you got into jhana, and afterwards too. But the mind, we all know how the mind works. It wants to go into the past and check things out that had happened, and it wants to go into the future and kind of explore the possibilities that will happen. And it's all mental stuff. It's all the mind, having its way. And we can accept that. It's not necessarily a problem unless we don't get an understanding that we focus on the breath and we come into this presence. And this presence is our true nature. That's the teaching. That's who we really are. And so in meditation, when the mind is wandering around and we notice this activity or this thing, that is our opportunity to see these things as these lessons in life. But we're not trying to create that in meditation. We're not trying to purposely go back into the past or go into the future and use these as lessons, but we're just letting it, what the mind naturally does, we're observing that and seeing that. But we still want to, in meditation, the practice, we still want to come back into the present moment and explore that as much as we can, because that's who we really are. And that whole process is, collecting these lessons, seeing what these lessons are all about.